Hi, I'm Soft Seaside and happy year of the rabbit and cat. Chúc mừng năm mới is what I would have told you a few months ago. However, Lunar New Year has passed already, but it is still the year of the rabbit, or in Vietnamese, the year of a cat. And for this occasion, I drew this picture of my original characters, Yuri and Shinsuke, from my webcomic AC New Insights back in January. So today we want to take a look at the making of this drawing, so let's dive in. In Vietnam, the year of a rabbit is replaced by the year of a cat, and it just so happens that each main character of my webcomic has a signature animal. And very coincidentally, these two siblings that will both be Vietnamese in the webcomic reboot have both the rabbit and the cat as their signature animals. So the motive was really clear for me. I wanted to draw them in the Vietnamese traditional clothing called áo dài, which translates into long dress. And I wanted to draw both of them as their assigned animals. It was just such a lucky coincidence that the animals for this lunar year are their assigned animals. I had no saying in that, it was just pure coincidence. Just a quick note here, I haven't completely decided on their new Vietnamese names yet, so I will just use the old names in the original, Yuri and Shinsuke. So, I really wanted the drawing to be interesting, eye-catching and turn out nice, so I tried really hard to push out of my comfort zones. I used a reference for Yuri's pose, using a model from Figurosity.com, and I wanted to make it look more dynamic. Sadly, I didn't look up a reference for Shin's pose, therefore he doesn't look as interesting as her. But I think that suits his personality pretty good. Him being a serious person and her being a bit more chill. I looked up a lot of reference of áo dài and learned that there are a lot of different types I didn't know about. I added a Vietnamese turban to the outfits because I really like them and I see them combined with áo dài a lot, and it was really hard for me to find references because first of all I didn't know what they were called. Now I know that they are called khăn tông, and they are very similar hats that people who marry wear on their wedding, and that is really not what I wanted to draw at all. Also, I tried to draw all these parallel lines of a hat myself instead of just copying them. Yeah, peeps, work smart, not hard. As you can see, I struggled very hard with the text, and it will not be the last time. Now we're drawing the line art. So, if you have seen my previous speed painting of Lunaria, which I will link in the top and in the description, you know how much I love strong line art with very light weight and line art with shadows and texture. And of course I had to add these in this artwork as well. I also struggled with Shin's áo dài because I couldn't find a lot of reference for the male clothing and I didn't want his pose to look too boring compared to Yuri, so I tried to make it flappy. If any Vietnamese person is watching this, please tell me how the clothing is called because I have no idea. Thank you! I should mention that I am Vietnamese. However, I was born, raised, and I'm currently living in Germany. And therefore, I don't know a lot about my culture. And drawing this piece made me learn about Tết, the Vietnamese name for Lunar New Year, and my culture, my roots. I could connect a lot with my mom. I asked her what I should include in the drawings and what to bear in mind, and what Tết is all about, and therefore this drawing means a lot to me on a personal level. When I was younger, I didn't really appreciate my roots. I used to really dislike the way people looked at me and treated me as I was like some kind of alien, and I really hated áo dài. I think they looked super ugly. and the one that we had at home didn't even fit me, and I felt very ugly in when my mom told me that I should wear it for some special occasions. But now that I am older, I really appreciate my roots. I see a lot of good things in my culture, obviously also a lot of bad things. But I'm very happy for who I am, and nowadays I really try to learn more about my background and really accept it and see it as something unique and amazing. Okay, back to the drawing. I added some black thickening shadows in the edges and overlappings. I hatched the texture of the clothing to suggest form and flow. But I'm struggling to find the balance between hatching and completely black shadows like in Western comic books. I really like that look, but it's a bit hard because I feel like I still lack the skill to place my shadows, because most of the time I just wing it and I don't know where my light source is coming from, and I really have to learn that to remember it. However, it's still a very pleasant process for me, and I just think it looks good. Now we are adding the embroideries of the clothing. I knew directly that I wanted to give them a flowery design, because I feel that it's very typical for Vietnamese clothing to have flowers on them, and it suits just the topic of my webcomic, being all about flowers and memories and family. So Yui's flower is a daffodil, and shins are various types of succulents, I have no idea what they are called. For the flowers of the outside and the background elements, I used downloadable Clip Studio assets. I will link the ones I used in the description, so you can download them too if you want to. They are free to use. Now we are starting the colors in the background. Obviously, the outside had to be red with yellow accents for Lunar New Year. The colors of the background were especially hard for me. I had a lot of ideas, for example, making it look like the typical red envelope, the night sky, or maybe giving it a strong contrast of the siblings color-wise. But in the end, I decided on orange pinkish colors to match the outside of the two. And it also looks like the lesbian flag, so that's always a win. So let's go for the shading. I choose my shadow colors individually. I'm not a big fan of multiply because it tends to look muddy when I use it, but only if I use it, I feel. I put a lot of effort into the folds of the outside, and like in the previous drawing, I tried to use both soft and hard shadows. Normally I just have like a painterly kind of shading and coloring, but I really want to nail it down. Also with this drawing, I also have a problem with finding the balance of the line art speaking for itself and the colors overshadowing it. I don't know if it makes sense, but it's just really hard for me because I really like line art, but I also really like to make painterly style of coloring. I don't know. I also like to add light by using a little light, a little highlight for the borders. I think it just gives the drawing an interesting look, but it sometimes clashes with the soft shadows I use. So once again, I kind of have to figure that out, how to balance line art and coloring. I also just noticed that I put a little white border around the two of them, so they're standing out better from the background. I really like when artists use like an outer border to make objects pop out more. It's like, yeah, that's a man. It's really nice. I really like it. Can I just say that I think that outside look really nice. I kind of want to have one too. I would really love to celebrate Lunar New Year in Vietnam actually. It's like 3 days or 1 week, I'm not sure. And it's really cool and I really want to try it out. For this piece, I really tried to remember where the light source is coming from. In this case, I think it was like diagonally. It was like above the head, sidewise, I'm not sure. I also added a little bit of bouncing light on their clothes. I'm still not an expert in shadow and light, and I should probably learn what colors to use for the bouncing light and how exactly light bounces and shadow falls depending on the material. But I think even with my attempt, it already adds a lot of plasticity. A lot of plasticity. Plasticity? And as you can see, I struggled a lot with the composition of this drawing. At some point I changed the size of the canvas, so I was extra confused where to put the elements on. I asked my mom and the internet what are typical decorations for Tết, and I learned about the Vietnamese lanterns and this very common tradition of peaches and plums and kumquat trees that symbolize luck. So yeah. And actually I wanted to draw a rabbit and a cat next to my OCs, but animals are really hard to draw for me. And after adding the background elements, I found background too crowdy and noisy to add the animals. Also, once again, writing is really hard, as you can see. And we're done with the drawing. I think this one turned out really nice. I think it was the first illustration I drew in 2023, and I'm really happy that I managed to draw this for Lunar New Year. I set a deadline that I wanted to post this on Lunar New Year. Learning and growing is really important for me, so I'm very glad that I could grow emotionally and artistically with this drawing that meant so much for me because of my culture. And yeah. I hope you enjoyed the speed painting as much as I had fun recording it. You can expect more speed paintings in the future, but I also want to make different content, especially about my OCs and making comics, so stay tuned for that too. Thank you so much for watching this. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like or subscribing to see more. See you in the next video. Bye!